everyone, it's Lauren from Love Renovate. I hope you're having a super week. This week I'm going to be chatting all about 5 mistakes to avoid when renovating. So obviously every project is different, you'll come across different issues and problems, but there's some common mistakes that people make when they're going into a renovation, quite general ones. So we're going to chat about that today, which should help you before you start your renovation. So one of the first biggest mistakes people make is rushing big decisions. Now this starts with even the design of your renovation. Kind of maybe you haven't lived in the property and you kind of want to get going, you're thinking we want to do this, we want to extend here, I want the kitchen to go here, but you haven't actually lived in the property, thought about how is the light going to come in, what's important to you, what kind of rooms do you need a utility, that kind of thing. So kind of giving an architect a brief before you've even thought about it yourself. So really don't rush into any of the designs and kind of signing off drawings that you're not quite sure about. And then the other one with rushing is if you haven't planned the renovation really well, so if you haven't thought about choosing all your products such as the kitchen, the flooring, colour schemes, then it means that when your builder's actually working, they're going to want decisions made really quickly. So you don't want to rush any of the big choices. So just make sure you plan so well that nothing is rushed as much as you can control. So have everything kind of planned out way months before the actual build starts, so that nothing is actually you're making some kind of decisions that you think, oh, I really regret that, or I regret choosing that kitchen because I just couldn't decide at the time and I kind of went for that one. Just really don't rush any of the big decisions, because there will be some along the way. The builder will want some quick decisions made, maybe something to do with the design that's not quite working. So there will be some that you can control, but if you've kind of thought of everything else, then that should be much easier. So the next big mistake we see people often making is working with the wrong type of people throughout their renovation. So this starts with the architect. So we often chat to people and they say, I thought the architect was going to come up with some good ideas, but they just drew what I kind of said to them. And that's probably because maybe you haven't given them the right brief. You haven't said, I want you to lead on the design, but also maybe you haven't chosen a design-led architect, somebody that's trained on the actual design of the building. And in the same vein, you maybe think, well, some people end up going and paying a lot of money for somebody that's design-led. And actually, if they really knew what they wanted, they were really clear, had a really clear brief, maybe the neighbour's done something really similar, then you just actually need somebody like an architectural technologist, or somebody that can draw up the plans for you, help you through your planning application and building control. So making sure you're choosing the right type of professional at the start, who's also got experience in your type of project and you like their style as well, is really important. And then the same goes for the builder. So when you're choosing builders, it's really important to get loads of references, speak to the references in person and go and visit the work and check you like the quality and the standard and what the people actually say about the builder. It's so important. And then at the start, when you're working with a builder to get quotes, if they're frustrating you at the start, then they're probably going to really frustrate you the whole way through the renovation. So make sure it's somebody that you actually get on with. You think it's somebody that kind of shares your vision and maybe you get the impression they can see they would be really good at solving problems as you go through the renovation. And it's also super important to make sure you choose the right builder who's got experience with your type of project as well. Because you can get some amazing people that are really good at doing knocking down walls and redoing a kitchen, that kind of thing, but maybe they haven't done loads of rear extensions or loft conversions. So making sure it's the right type of person. And also the style of house. So if you've got a Victorian conversion or a listed building, something like that, you want a builder that's worked on those type of properties as well, because they'll know the type of materials to use, the type of issues that come up. So again, it could be somebody that's great, but they've not worked on a listed building or an old property. So you really need to make sure you choose the right person, which will make the whole project easier, smoother from start to finish if it's somebody that's got plenty experience and you work well with. So the next mistake that we see people often making is underestimating the costs. So we often think it's going to be much less than it actually is. Everybody will say it ends up costing way more than they thought. So really going into it, considering all the costs that could be involved. There's 5 big buckets you have to think about. There's the professional fees and application costs. Then there's the labour and build, which is obviously the chunky one. And then the third one to think about is big ticket items like windows, doors, flooring, kitchens, bathrooms, all those that will cost quite a bit. And then the fourth one is the interiors and all the finishes, so things like paint and handles and architrave and all those things. And then 5 is the contingency, which we recommend of 15 to 20% of the construction costs. So really going through these with a fine tooth comb, making sure that you do have the funds available to cover what it could potentially cost. And if you don't, think about different ways where you could cut back, or could you push it back for a couple of years until you're able to do exactly what you want to do. So the next common mistake is following trends. So you want to make sure that everything you do in your renovation is going to be, it'll stand up to the test of time. So you're investing a lot of money, say, in a new kitchen and bathroom, and you want something that you're going to really like in 10 years time, not get bored of. So make sure if you are choosing something, it's something you really, really like, rather than just going with a trend. Now it could be you like your kitchen, you want the kitchen painted in a particular colour, but just make sure it's the type of kitchen that, again, that you can repaint, something like that. So again, if you're fed up of it, in 5-10 years time you can repaint it, maybe change the handles, and you've always, it's kind of future proofed. And the same goes for things like, say you've always wanted your heart set on a huge island, but maybe the dimensions of your new kitchen extension, just you can't cram in the island the size that you want, so maybe a great peninsula would look really good instead. So really think about what works for your home, rather than what you've seen on Instagram or Pinterest. It looks amazing, but it might not just work for yours. The same goes for things such as like windows and doors. It could be that you would love like roof lanterns that look really beautiful and let in loads of light, but actually your home is south facing, it gets quite hot, so you maybe don't want just as much windows in that extension letting in just as much light. So think about things like that. And then the same goes, say if you've always wanted bifold doors but the width of your extension isn't that wide, maybe sliding doors would look much nicer. So really look at what works for your house rather than what you've seen online, and making sure everything that you choose is something that can be updated easily, and you're happy with the basics, and you can just update things, the look, by paint and the interior finishes. So the next common mistake that people make is not considering all the different rules and regulations, and this is so important. So the first one that is obvious is the planning application, but if you don't actually need planning approval, then it's recommended to get a lawful development certificate, just to prove that the work has been carried out lawfully should you come to sell it in the future. Then there's building control, which is one that can't be avoided for any work that's been done structurally. You can get, for small projects such as like replacing the windows, you can get somebody to self-certify the work. But any other building, any other large extension, renovation project, you will need building control approval, and it's your responsibility to get the certificates at the end and keep them. But then there's lots of other ones that you need to consider. So there's things like the getting a party wall agreement from your neighbours. Again, that can add some time in if people don't agree, so you maybe need to involve a surveyor, so you kind of incorporate that into your timescales. You need to do that before you start the actual construction work. And then there's things such as like build over agreements. If you're doing work near to or over a manhole cover, then you'll need to get an agreement from your water authority as well. And then there's stuff like if you're doing a loft conversion, is there like bats in the loft? Do you need a bat survey? Do you need tree surveys? So there's really think about them all and chat through with your architect about them, and also your builder, just making sure you haven't missed anything off, because there's lots that can apply to various different types of projects and where you live in the country and where your home is. So those are our mistakes to avoid when you are renovating. Just to recap those, the first one is don't rush any decisions, making sure it's really well planned. The second one is working with the right type of people throughout the project. Third, do not underestimate the cost. It will probably cost you way more than you initially think it's going to. The fourth one is don't follow trends, go for what's right for you and your home, and make sure it's adaptable in the future. And then the fifth one is make sure you've considered all of the different rules and regulations and spoken to your architect and builder to make sure you've covered everything else off. I hope you found that really useful. If you need any more advice, then please do head over to loverenovate.co.uk.